This is Constitutional Rights in Black and White.
So this webinar today is on the role that municipal courts play in our democracy and in our local governance. It is about putting municipal courts into context with individuals and other institutions. We know that these courts play important roles in people's lives, but they also play important roles in the entire communities that they serve, in the local governments where they reside, and even in the sort of entire state and federal justice system that they are a part of. Some municipal judges are elected, some are appointed, but in all of these courts, judges, clerks, staff come from the communities that appear before these courts and can tailor their justice to those communities. So before we get there, I just want to introduce our presenters today. We have three fantastic presenters for you all today. Our first is Jake Falaschini, who works at the Alliance for Justice as their program director for justice. Our second presenter will be Judge Sparks, who is the presiding municipal court judge in the city of Birmingham, Alabama, and has decades of experience with municipal courts and how they operate within their communities. Our third presenter will be Judge Howson, who is a district and municipal court judge in Skagit County in Washington State.
My role this morning is to provide some definitions and frames for exactly what it is that we're talking about here, municipal courts, possibly the most overlooked, under-researched, and yet deeply impactful body of courts in the United States of America. I've been studying the state and federal courts for nearly 2 decades now and have helped dozens of potential judges seek positions on local and municipal courts. So under what authority do these courts even exist? Well, the Supreme Court said in Missouri v. Lewis that it is the right of every state to establish such courts as it sees fit and to prescribe their several jurisdictions as to territorial extent, subject matter and amount, and the finality and effect of their decisions. Thus, in every one of the states where municipal courts exist, a constitutional provision and/or statute either allows for or mandates the creation of municipal courts. This is normally located in the home rule authority of cities. Municipal courts are the places where cities and towns can enforce their own codes and ordinances. In 27 states, municipal courts have criminal jurisdiction over locally defined crimes and can impose convictions and criminal punishments for those crimes. Depending on the city, these local crimes codes and ordinances can be substantial, ranging from traffic citations to pickpocketing, disturbing the peace, disorderly conduct, public nuisance, littering, prostitution, gambling, vandalism, trespass, firearms offenses, sleeping in public, aggressive panhandling, drinking, drug possession, and much more. According to Professor Nadapoff, municipal courts generate over 1/4 of the 13 million criminal misdemeanor cases filed annually nationwide. In other words, at a bare minimum, municipal courts generate more than 3 million misdemeanor cases every year. To extrapolate the human impact, assuming that each case in the municipal court misdemeanor cases only involve one person, that means that nearly 1 out of every 100 Americans is involved in a misdemeanor case every year. How are the judges chosen? In roughly half of the states with municipal courts, judges are picked in elections, and in roughly the other half, they're appointed. The appointing body can be different in each municipality. These methods for picking judges can vary in different municipalities, even within the same county. I once helped a judge on her nonpartisan reelection campaign for a municipal court in King County, Washington, and just 3 weeks later, helped a different candidate for a different municipal court judgeship for the next town over work on his appointment to a municipal court position that was hired by the city manager. In another town in the exact same county, municipal court judges are appointed by the mayor. These courts also sometimes pose direct contradictions to the separation of powers, especially in instances where city executives like mayors serve as both the mayor and also sometimes the municipal court judge.
We walk a tightrope, particularly those of us who serve as presiding judges, because not only are we working with the legislative branch for appointment, We also have to maintain and support issues coming from the executive branch or the mayor's office. As a department head, I am in a place of actually running a department, but I have a separate branch of government that I'm responsible for. And all the constitutional requirements that are necessary to be protected, we still have those responsibilities. We understand, as most courts do in vibrant cities, in progressive cities, that there are certain things that are not within the purview of a court to do. And so we can't be effective in the execution of our duties if we don't collaborate with partner agencies outside of the court. You can't run an effective a domestic violence court if you don't have a supportive victims support group from the community. And so it's important that we collaborate with them. It's hard for us to run an effective drug court or substance use disorder court without having nonprofits in the community who will help us with treatment and support people who are struggling. So not only do we have to be competent and collaborative, we also have to be creative, finding new ways to understand how we can help people who have the same problems. I'm yet to have anyone tell me the difference between a misdemeanor drug addiction and a felony drug addiction. And so we make sure we support people when we see them. In fact, my notion about supporting people is we won't be the latest governmental agency to let you down when you come to us and you have issues. And so we make sure that we reach out. We have 8 social workers on staff at this court. Not all municipal courts are created equal, and it has to be those who are progressive. So creativity is part of our lifeblood. We have to determine why so many people in the state of Alabama are driving without driver's licenses. What can we do to help them get their driver's licenses? And so the creativity sparked a program called the Renew program. Several thousand people have been able to either get their license for the first time or renew their license. That's the name of the program, Renew. But of course, we run into the same social issues that every other agency runs into. The reason so many people don't have driver's licenses in the state of Alabama is because of literacy. That's not an issue that is endemic to the court. That is a social issue that we need to work out. Judges in my sphere have to be appointed by the legislative group. So any judge who sits at a municipal court in the state of Alabama must understand the politics associated with getting the seat in the first place. You got to convince the council, the legislative branch, to appoint you. Full-time judges serve for 4 years. Part-time judges serve for 2 years. Once selected, maintaining that position is not just sitting on the bench all day, but it's also being a part of the community that we live in. It means supporting activities within the community, the same requirements that any other judge has. I know there's much more to be talked about, and I'm excited to see what my colleague, Judge Howson, is going to say. And so I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to her at this point. Hello, Judge Howson.
Thank you so much, Judge Sparks. What kindred spirits we are from all the way across the country. I am Judge Howson. I am in Northwest Washington State, across the country from Alabama there. I am the presiding judge of Skagit County District and Municipal Courts, and that's a coalition, which is a unique design. It's 1 district court and 3 municipal courts. And we have judges that are assigned to each court. I assigned myself to the Mount Vernon Municipal Court. I have a deep love for municipal courts, having practiced as an attorney for over 30 years in these very courts before I became appointed as a judge and then as I became elected. So I am an elected judge. We call these municipal courts often referred to in our area as the People's Court. And that's because, as Judge Sparks said, and everyone else has alluded to, this is the court where most people will have some contact with our municipal courts at some point, and not everyone does with the other courts. And so we work very hard all across our jurisdictions to make sure that we have access to justice that meets the needs of the people. So when I first came on the bench back in 2017, everything about all of our municipal courts was handled in a adversarial system. The traditional prosecutor, defense attorney, court making the decision. And what I saw within 3 weeks of being on the bench was the revolving door between the jail and the citizens over these misdemeanors, and how much more time they were spending in jail than was necessary for the crimes that they'd been alleged to have committed, or they were awaiting trial. And so within about 3 weeks, I began a program very similar to Judge Sparks describing, and we called it the relicensing clinic. And it is an off-record court hearing that we hold, and we do it twice a month, and anybody in the entire county can appear, and I walk the person through the steps to get relicensed. And we have volunteer lawyers to help with bigger issues for the person. And that program has been going then since 2017, and thousands of people have been licensed and insured. And it's become a model for across the state of Washington, and we're really, really proud of that. Shortly thereafter, I also saw that revolving door for the crimes of poverty and homelessness, and that were affecting the businesses in our communities, and began working on, in 2020, a very complex network of therapeutic treatment courts, so that every single person in our county and all of the municipal courts could have the same services available to them. So we created a network for treatment courts that has been hugely successful. We have over 450 current participants and close to 1,000 graduates since 2020. So we're really, really proud of that program. And in order to do that, we had to do collaboration and negotiation with the local government. So if you can imagine 3 municipal courts and a district court, but 3 municipal courts, each has a mayor, each has a city council. And I had to go out and it became very important to me to get to know each of those mayors and each of those city councils, including the individual participants on the city council, get to know them, to appear at their meetings, to understand the issues across the cities that they were dealing with. And historically, the judges had kept the separation of powers to a more extreme level. And so what I did, I just wanted to understand what they were faced with and what was important to them. The court clerks and myself, we go to those city council meetings and we speak when an issue about the courts is before those bodies. And that's not just because we might be called upon, but it's just to show that we are listening and we're collaborating. And so always it's a tight tension with the separation of powers. So we have rules governing that, and we pay attention to those in almost every meeting we ever have with mayors or with city councils. We will bring up that. I can't answer that question as the judge. You can't, or we'll say, you can't tell the court that. You can't ask us to tell you this. We'll always be raising those separation of powers issues, but we'll do it with an open mind and a fresh look. I heard Judge Sparks talking about collaboration a lot, and that is key. It is exactly what we try to do, is collaborate. We do a lot of listening, and we try to address the issues that are facing the community.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. That's really inspiring to hear. I really appreciate all of those sort of specific examples about the ways that Judge Housen and Judge Sparks, you work with your community and community organizations and local governments to do these extraordinary things. I want to provide the sort of final segment of this webinar, taking things zooming out even one more level, and talking a little bit about the relationship between municipal courts and their states, and sort of the broader justice system. But despite being a part of the state system, municipal courts are often quite independent from the rest of the state. And again, this depends on the state, and so I'm sort of speaking in generalities here, but research that I've done, especially in an article called The Structures of Local Courts, has showed that municipal courts often receive limited sort of administrative and substantive oversight or relationship with their state court systems. So some municipal court systems, for example, receive some funding from their states, but many do not. Many are funded solely by their municipalities or by fees and fines generated in the courts themselves, or don't receive budgetary oversight of any kind. I don't want to go too deep into the doctrinal weeds here, but there are federal court doctrines called preclusion, abstention, habeas corpus that each require federal courts to defer to state courts in certain circumstances. And in practice, because of the low appeals rates from local court to state courts, those federal doctrines actually can end up sheltering and protecting local and municipal courts, which is a mixed thing, I think. So on the one hand, it's good for the federal courts to respect the work that happens in state and municipal courts, in part because of that close relationship that municipal courts have with their communities that Judge Howson and Judge Sparks have been speaking about. On the other hand, sometimes we might want a little bit more federal oversight of these courts. Like every institution, things can go right and things can go wrong in municipal courts. That's true of all courts.
Professor, one thing I don't think is ever talked about in these hearings is the courage it takes for some of these judges who lead these municipal courts to go against the grain of normalcy, to talk to and advocate before these municipal leaders, the mayor and the council, to educate them about the benefits of doing things the way we kind of do it in this new form. It takes courage because you expose yourself professionally, and the blowback can be swift sometimes when people don't agree with you. But when it works, and it doesn't work all at once, as Judge Howson says, when it works, it takes years in order to put a system in place that is consistently beneficial. In Alabama, the state doesn't give municipal courts anything. But you saw how many courts we have, and they take fines, fees, court costs. They take all those things, but they don't send anything back. At some point, that imbalance is going to have to be redressed. Because the cities, as in anything, are taking on the entire load of the justice system within their jurisdictional boundaries. And none of that state money comes back.
I would just agree with all of that and also say that it's not 100%. It's not even close. I have a lot of division even within my own bench, within several of the communities. They're at different levels of comprehension or understanding of what treatment courts can do, or what fines and fees, why the fines and fees issue is affecting participants, why the shift. We no longer want to present our budget saying this is how much money we're bringing in, and so therefore this is why we're asking for all these things. We have to ask for the things we need and want, regardless of how much money we're bringing in on fines and fees, because the laws are changing so dramatically.
Yeah, I think, there's a saying that all politics is local, and it is. And that means getting, as Judge Howson said so wonderful, getting to know people, sitting down.
That's wonderful. Thank you. We have reached the end of our webinar. I want to thank the three of you so much for sharing your experiences and your knowledge.